Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are diving into what has to be one of the most bizarre, incredibly elaborate, and just utterly brilliant long cons in modern military history. We're going to unpack an operation, a massive deception really, that literally changed the course of World War II and saved thousands upon thousands of lives. We're talking about Operation Mincemeat. By the end of this explainer, you are going to understand exactly how a homeless man from London became without a doubt the single most important soldier in the fight against fascism.
So, I want you to put yourself in a very specific mindset for just a second. Imagine you're a high-ranking Nazi general. It's 1943. You've just gotten word that a body washed up on a Spanish beach at dawn. It's a British officer, and incredibly, he's carrying top-secret plans for a massive upcoming Allied invasion. Sounds like the ultimate stroke of luck, right? I mean, that's the kind of intelligence jackpot that outright wins wars. But what if that stroke of luck was actually a carefully engineered illusion? What if I told you this officer never even existed, and those secret plans were a deadly trap dreamt up by none other than the future author of James Bond? To really grasp why a deception like this was even necessary, we have to look at the massive strategic nightmare the Allies were facing. Section 1. The impossible Sicily problem. Okay, so by 1943, the Allies are finally in a spot to strike back at what everyone was calling Fortress Europe. They needed a foothold for sure, but they desperately needed to avoid a complete bloodbath. They had to be smart. Now, the absolute obvious target, Sicily. It's sitting right there, like the perfect stepping stone from North Africa straight into Europe. But because it was so incredibly obvious, the Nazis had heavily reinforced the island with hundreds of thousands of troops. A direct assault would have meant catastrophic casualties. So British intelligence needed to pull off an absolute miracle. They had to make Hitler believe they were totally ignoring the obvious choice and were instead gearing up to attack Greece and Sardinia. Basically, they needed him to think Sicily was nothing more than a decoy. The sheer scale of what they were up against was summed up pretty bluntly by Winston Churchill. He said, "Everyone but a fool would know it's Sicily." I mean, how on earth do you convince a paranoid, deeply suspicious dictator to ignore the most glaringly obvious target on the entire map? Well, enter Rear Admiral John Godfrey and his personal assistant, Ian Fleming. Yes, that Ian Fleming, the guy who would eventually write James Bond. They dug up this wild idea inspired by a detective novel, famously known as the Trout Memo. The whole concept was definitely morbid, but you have to admit it was incredibly creative. The plan? Find a corpse, dress him up as a British officer, plant fake secret documents on him, and literally let the ocean tides deliver the lie straight to the enemy. Which brings us to our next phase, Section 2, creating a ghost. You know, an idea is really just an idea until you execute it. And for this, they desperately needed a body. British intelligence actually went to a London morgue and found Glyndwr Michael. He was a homeless man who tragically died after eating rat poison. And right there, in the cold light of that morgue, this completely forgotten man was transformed. To the world, and much more importantly, to the Nazis, he was about to become Acting Major William Martin of the Royal Marines. But they couldn't just throw a uniform on a body and call it a day. The German intelligence agency, the Abwehr, they were notoriously thorough. They were going to look for the actual man behind the uniform. So to fool them, British intelligence had to give this ghost a life, using what they called pocket litter. They went all out. They gave him a photo of a fake fiancée named Pam. They literally wrote out 2 passionate love letters from her. They threw in a receipt for a brand new engagement ring, and even used ticket stubs from a London theater to show exactly what he did on his last night in town. They even included an angry letter from his bank about an overdraft. It's just masterful psychological warfare. They created a flawed, deeply believable human being because they knew if the man felt real, the lies he was carrying in his pockets would feel real too. But all of that pocket litter, that was really just the setup. The actual payload was the bait. They chained a briefcase to Major Martin's trench coat, and inside this briefcase was a highly sensitive, supposedly personal letter between 2 high-ranking Allied generals. This fake letter explicitly stated that Greece and Sardinia were the actual planned targets, and it basically brushed off Sicily as a mere diversion. It was this perfectly wrapped package of disinformation, just waiting for the enemy to crack it open. All right, moving on to Section 3, the perfect bait. Let's actually walk through how this went down step by step, because the choreography here is just fascinating. April 30th, 1943. The British submarine HMS Seraph surfaces at night off the coast of Huelva, Spain. The crew actually thought they were deploying some secret weather device, but they were really just sliding Major Martin's body into the sea. Step 2, the body washes ashore and gets found by a local fisherman. Now, Spain was technically neutral, but their government was absolutely packed with Nazi sympathizers.
Step 3 is where the British really set the hook. They started blasting out these frantic telegrams demanding the return of the briefcase, knowing full well the Germans were intercepting every single word. They played the part of a totally desperate military that had just lost its most prized secrets. And step 4, the German agents swallowed the bait whole. They got their hands on that briefcase, carefully opened it, photographed every single document, and then meticulously resealed the whole shebang so the British wouldn't even know they'd been compromised.
Section 4, swallowing the lie whole. So, those photographs? They were immediately rushed straight to Adolf Hitler's desk, and he was utterly convinced. The fabricated personal letters, that incredibly detailed pocket letter, it all confirmed his own twist of intuition. He was so incredibly certain these documents were real that he actually overrode the advice of his own seasoned generals.
I mean, get this. Hitler actually ordered an entire Panzer division to move all the way from France to Greece. He shifted his elite troops entirely away from Sicily, and he even sent his legendary commander, the Desert Fox, Erwin Rommel, down to Greece to prepare for an Allied invasion that was literally never going to happen. The tangible payoff of this deception is absolutely staggering. Just look at how fast this played out. April 30th, the body is dropped off the coast of Spain. Just over 2 months later, July 10th, 1943, the Allies finally land on the beaches of Sicily. And all because of Major Martin, the Germans were caught completely flat-footed. They were literally just sitting around in Greece waiting for an attack. Because of this massive diversion, conquering the heavily fortified island of Sicily took a mere 38 days. The Allied casualties were just a tiny fraction of what military planners had originally feared. Back in London, a super-secretive, coded message was sent over to Winston Churchill to confirm the victory. It simply read, "Mincemeat swallowed whole." The enemy literally never realized they had been tricked until the war was practically over. And it's right here that we really need to reflect on Glyndwr Michael. This was a homeless man who died quietly in a London alleyway, and yet he was eventually buried in Spain with full military honors under the name Major William Martin. His true identity was kept totally hidden from the world for decades. In death, this completely forgotten man performed a service more vital and honestly saved more lives than almost any soldier could ever hope to in life. Operation Mincemeat proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that a meticulously crafted lie can absolutely be more powerful than 1,000 tanks. But it does leave us with a really profound, kind of lingering question to think about. Was it actually ethical to use a deceased man's body, a man who obviously couldn't consent, for a military ruse, even if that exact ruse saved thousands of lives and helped to win a world war? It's a really complex moral puzzle wrapped inside a brilliant tactical victory, and it's something people are literally still debating today. Think about that for a bit, and let the sheer scale of this historical deception really sink in. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the incredible stories that shape our world.